Little Johnny is always being teased by the other neighborhood boys for being stupid. Their favorite joke is to offer Johnny his choice between a nickel and a dime. Little Johnny always takes the nickel. One day, after Johnny takes the nickel, a neighbor takes him aside and says, "Johnny, those boys are making fun of you. Don't you know that a dime is worth more than a nickel, even though the nickel's bigger?" Johnny grins and says, "Well, if I took the dime, they'd stop doing it, and so far I've made $20. Fred and Mary got married, but can't afford a honeymoon, so they go back to Fred's parents' home for their first night together. In the morning, Johnny, Fred's little brother, gets up and has his breakfast. As he is going out of the door to go to school, he asks his mom if Fred and Mary are up yet. She replies, "No." Johnny asks, "Do you know what I think?" His mom replies, "I don't want to hear what you think. Just go to school." Johnny comes home for lunch and asks his mom, "Are Fred and Mary up yet?" She replies, "No." Johnny says, "Do you know what I think?" His mom replies, "Never mind what you think. Eat your lunch and go back to school." After school, Johnny comes home and asks again, "Are Fred and Mary up yet?" His mom says, "No." He asks, "Do you know what I think?" His mom replies, "Okay, do tell me what you think." He says, "Last night Fred came to my room for the Vaseline, and I think I gave him my airplane glue." Little Johnny was sitting in class doing math problems when his teacher picked him to answer a question. "Johnny, if there were 5 birds sitting on a fence and you shot one with your gun, how many would be left?" "None," replied Johnny, "'cause the rest would fly away." "Well, the answer is 4, said the teacher, "but I like the way you're thinking." Little Johnny says, "I have a question for you. If there were 3 women eating ice cream cones in a shop, one was licking her cone, the second was biting her cone, and the third was sucking her cone, which one is married?" "Well," said the teacher nervously, "I guess the one sucking the cone." "No," said little Johnny, "the one with the wedding ring on her finger, but I like the way you're thinking." A stranger was seated next to little Johnny on the plane when the stranger turned to the little Johnny and said, "Let's talk. I've heard that flights will go quicker if you strike up a conversation with your fellow passenger." Little Johnny, who had just opened his book, closed it slowly and said to the stranger, "What would you like to discuss?" "Oh, I don't know," said the stranger. "How about nuclear power?" "Okay," said little Johnny. "That could be an interesting topic. But let me ask you a question first. A horse, a cow, and a deer all eat grass, the same stuff. Yet a deer excretes little pellets, while a cow turns out a flat patty and a horse produces clumps of dried grass. Why do you suppose that is?" "Geez," said the stranger, "I have no idea." "Well then," said little Johnny, "how is it that you feel qualified to discuss nuclear power when you don't know shit?" A teacher was explaining government to her second-grade class. For homework, she told her students to go home and ask their parents, "What is the government?" When little Johnny got home, he asked his dad. His dad thought for a moment and said, "Let me put it this way. I'm the president, your mom is Congress, our maid is the workforce, you are the people, and your baby brother is the future." Johnny scratched his head and said, "I'm not sure I understand." "Don't worry," his dad replied. "Just sleep on it and maybe it'll make more sense tomorrow." That night, Johnny woke up to his baby brother crying. When he went to check, he saw that his brother needed his diaper changed. So Johnny went to his parents' room for help. Looking through the keyhole, he saw his mom fast asleep, but his dad wasn't there. He then peeked into the maid's room and saw his dad in there, very busy. Johnny stood back and thought aloud, "Oh, now I get it. The president is keeping the workforce busy. Congress is fast asleep. Nobody cares about the people, and the future is in a messy situation." On the last day of kindergarten, all the children brought presents for their teacher. The florist's son handed the teacher a gift. She shook it, held it up, and said, "I bet I know what it is. It's some flowers." "That's right!" shouted the little boy. Then the candy store owner's daughter handed the teacher a gift. She held it up, shook it, and said, "I bet I know what it is. It's a box of candy." "That's right," shouted the little girl. The next gift was from the liquor store owner's son, little Johnny. The teacher held it up and saw that it was leaking. She touched a drop with her finger and tasted it. "Is it wine?" she asked. "No," little Johnny answered. The teacher touched another drop to her tongue. "Is it champagne?" she asked. "No," he answered. Finally, the teacher said, "I give up. What is it?" Little Johnny replied, "A puppy." Little Johnny came home from Sunday school with a black eye. His father noticed and said, "Johnny, how many times have I told you not to get into fights with the other boys?" Johnny replied, "But Dad, it wasn't my fault. We were in church saying our prayers. When we stood up, my teacher's dress was caught in the back. I thought I was helping, so I pulled it out. That's when she turned around and hit me." His father shook his head and said, "Johnny, you mustn't do things like that to women." Sure enough, the very next Sunday, Johnny came home with his other eye black and blue. His father sighed, "Johnny, I thought we had talked about this." Johnny answered, "But Dad, it really wasn't my fault. We were in church again saying our prayers. When we stood up, my teacher's dress was caught the same way. Louie, sitting next to me, reached over and pulled it out. I remembered she didn't like that, so I tried to fix it by tucking it back in." In class one day, Mr. Johnson pulled Johnny over to his desk after a test and said, "Johnny, I have a feeling that you have been cheating on your tests." Johnny was astounded and asked Mr. Johnson to prove it. "Well," said Mr. Johnson, "I was looking over your test and the question was, who was our first president? And the little girl that sits next to you, Mary, put George Washington, and so did you. So everyone knows that he was the first president," said little Johnny with his little innocent eyes open large. "Just wait a minute," said Mr. Johnson. "The next question was, who freed the slaves? Mary put Abraham Lincoln, and so did you." "Well, I read the history book last night and I remembered that," said Johnny. Wait, said Mr. Johnson. "The next question was, who was president during the Louisiana Purchase? Mary put, I don't know, and you put, me neither." At school, little Johnny was told by a classmate that most adults hide at least one dark secret, and this makes it very easy to blackmail them, merely by saying, "I know the whole truth." So, little Johnny decides to try it out. When he arrives home from school that day, he says to his mother, "I know the whole truth." His mother looks shocked, quickly finds $20 and gives it to him, saying, "Just don't tell your father." Little Johnny waits for his father to get home from work and greets him with, "I know the whole truth." His father looks shocked, quickly finds $40 and gives it to him, saying, "Just don't tell your mother." The next morning, little Johnny is on his way to school when he sees the mailman at his front door. The boy decides to try again. "I know the whole truth," he asserts boldly. The mailman stops in his tracks, then, tears in his eyes, drops his mailbag, opens his arms, and says, "Then come give your daddy a great big hug."
While playing in the backyard, little Johnny kills a honeybee. His father sees him killing the honeybee and angrily says, "No honey for you for 1 month." Later that afternoon, Johnny's dad catches him tearing the wings off a butterfly. "That's it, no butter for you for 1 month," says his dad. Later that evening, as Johnny's mother cooks dinner, a cockroach runs across the kitchen floor. She jumps and stomps on it and then looks up to find little Johnny and her husband watching her. Little Johnny looks at his father and says, "Are you going to tell her, Dad, or do you want me to?"
Little Johnny went to confession. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I spent time with a naughty girl." The priest asked, "Is that you, Johnny Pagano?" "Yes, Father, it is." "And who was the girl you were with?" "I can't tell you, Father. I don't want to hurt her reputation." "Well, Johnny, I'll probably find out sooner or later, so you may as well tell me now." "Was it Tina Minetti?" "I cannot say." "Was it Teresa Mazzarelli?" "I'll never tell." "Was it Nina Capelli?" "I'm sorry, but I cannot name her." "Was it Kathy Piriano?" "My lips are sealed." "Then was it Rosa D'Angelo?" "Please, Father, I cannot tell you." The priest sighed in frustration. "You're very tight-lipped, and I admire that. But you've sinned and must atone. You cannot be an altar boy now for 4 months. Now go and behave yourself." Johnny returned to his pew, and his friend Franco leaned over and whispered, "Well, what did you get?" Johnny grinned and said, "4 months vacation and 5 good leads."